And welcome everybody to the final yard here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I am your host, Louis Sung, and I am joined by Chris Early and Michael Quirk. And the Miami Dolphins have come out on top as we all expected them to, although it was not nearly as much of a blowout as we were expecting it to be. I'll give credit to Antonio Pierce for turning around these Raiders. They really seem much more prepared. They seem to have much higher morale overall. Maybe Josh McDaniels really just is that bad of a head coach. So we might have to just take that into account. So we're going to go ahead and talk about everything that we saw here. We're going to go ahead and give credit where it's due, give criticism where it's due. We're not going to leave anything on the table for this. But before that, really quick, as always, want to go ahead and mention this show is brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that is the NFL or the NBA or the MLB, one of each. It is up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less in their projected stat. So, by the way, for everybody who was not aware of pregame, my friends over here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network helps me make some picks here. 5 Picks is currently having some issues with their live scoring, but I think that they actually helped me out here. Jalen Phillips got a sack. Max Crosby got credited with the sack. Jacoby Myers got more than 3.5 catches. So as long as Aiden O'Connell did not have at least 12 points of fantasy points just because of that one touchdown, we'll see what happens there. But if we can get all that, that means I had a fantastic game. So we'll see what happens with that. But make sure you use that promo code 5. That's FIVE. And then we'll match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. So let's go ahead and make sure you go and do that. Again, prizepicks.com, promo code 5. Get started winning today. All right, so speaking of winning, the Miami Dolphins are now at 7-3. They have a 2-game lead on the Buffalo Bills for the AFC East right now. So we're looking forward to Miami eventually, and it feels like inevitably winning the AFC East at this point. Miami, even though they did have some struggles on offense, and I will get into all of my concerns with that in just a moment, I will say this, Vic Fangio's defense, I didn't want to believe that it was true. I really didn't, because I wanted to think that, one player cannot be the difference between a team being in the bottom half of defenses in the league and then becoming a top 10 defense. But it seems to be that is in fact the case. Jalen Ramsey, from the moment he got back on that football field, all of a sudden, like miraculously so, the Miami Dolphins are a top 10 defense. 2 interceptions today for Jalen Ramsey, one of which was the game-sealing interception. Everybody had a brief scare when he ended up going down for a little bit there, but he got back up, hyped up the crowd. So I guess what happened was he just fell really, really hard on the football in the end zone, and he was just kind of like, can't breathe for a few minutes. But he's okay now. We're good to go. And Miami wins 20-13. So, gentlemen, I'll go start with you, Mr. Quirk. What are your initial thoughts about everything that we just saw?
Yeah, I really realized I need to appreciate the moment of where these Dolphins are a bit better rather than getting emotional at times in the game. Because there was a couple throws that Tua had that, of course, he had the interception, but there was a couple other, to use Mina Kimes' term, interception-worthy throws that kind of raised my eyebrow. But I saw a tweet from someone that said that read off to a stat line, which in the end ended up being 28 of 39, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns in a pick. That if that's being a little off, we're in a good place as the Dolphins, and that's absolutely true. The defense was impressive today. I know it's Aiden O'Connell who he did come under 12. It was all thanks to that final reception from Jalen Ramsey, but the run defense was unbelievable today. This is Josh Jacobs, who was the best running back in football a year ago, and has really come on as of late. 16 rushes for 36 yards, just over 2 yards per carry allowed by the Dolphins defense. And so when you have that, and then Xavier Howard had a couple glitches out there, but by and large played a pretty good game. They were not throwing at Jalen Ramsey for the longest time. We're not even looking that direction. And when they did, he made 2 diving interceptions. So I'm unbelievably encouraged by the defense. And, you just have to win games. You just have to win games, get that in the win column. So 7-3. The offense was able to win the game when they weren't playing their best. We know that's not their best. And so when you can win like that, that's pretty encouraging to me.
So I get where you're coming from. And again, first of all, I want to say, I feel like the first interception for Jalen Ramsey was actually more impressive than his diving one in the end zone, because it felt like Jalen Ramsey teleported across the field, man, to get in front of that ball. I looked at it and I was like, wait, did he catch, who caught that pass? And then I looked and I saw it was Ramsey. I'm like, how did he do that? He has extendo arms or something. But in any case, the real concern that I have, and I will get into that, get into detail a little bit later, it's like this feels like it's the third game in a row now that the Dolphins have not been at their best on offense. And I don't want to just go ahead and say that teams have figured out how to beat Miami's offense. I feel a lot of it is just poor play calling. And again, I will elaborate on that a little bit later. But Duke, I want to get your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to clean up a lot of stuff. You can't be that sloppy with the football. 3 turnovers, just not good football. And 2 of those turnovers immediately turned into points. And the Raiders are not a good offensive team. They scored 7 points on drives that they had to drive down the field. They didn't get the ball gifted to them. See, the 2 field goals that they had, they gained 14 yards and 3 yards. So 2 drives, they gained 17 total yards and got 6 points because of turnovers. So the defense shut them down all day as expected. The Dolphins have to play better on offense. They've got to stop some of these silly things. I did not like that 4th down play call. The rushing numbers don't look that great in yards per carry, but they were running the ball effectively on that drive. You get a 3rd down and then a 4th down, and you don't attempt to run it and get close. So just sloppy football. You can't do that against a better team. And the Raiders are a decent team. They've improved, but they're not a great team. And next week you go up against the Jets, and if you play like that against the Jets, you're going to lose, because their offense is about the same as the Raiders, maybe a little slightly worse, but their defense is significantly better. So you need to get some things cleaned up. So I'm hoping that what this was coming out of the bye week, you've got a little rust. You're kind of knocking that rust off. We saw that last year. I think they played Houston coming off the bye. And even though that was a great game, it was still kind of sloppy. We had a couple, I think a defensive score or one that was really close. I think we had a defensive score and one that was set up on the 1 yard line. So we had some plays in that game, but overall the offense was kind of sloppy then too. So I'm hoping that's what this is, because if not, it's a concern.
All right. Now, we will get into some more positive things. We're going to talk more about the defense. Believe me, we will, because this defense has been phenomenal ever since Jalen Ramsey came back. But the number one thing that I have right now with the Dolphins is their 3rd down, 4th down play calling, as you alluded to briefly there, Duke. Why don't the Dolphins want to run the football on 3rd and 1? That, like, they had the Raiders had no indication all game long that they could stop the Dolphins from making at least positive yardage. Even if it's like 2 yards, it's still positive yardage. Every time the Dolphins had an opportunity to just pound the ball through the line of scrimmage and say, there's your 1st down, they decided to get cute with it. They tried to do play action, get 2 out in space, try to find some wrinkle. And a couple times it worked, but most of the time it didn't. And it's getting to the point where it feels like Mike McDaniel is always trying to do the unexpected when it's not necessary. The Raiders have shown no indication that they could stop the Dolphins from running the football. Raheem Mostert was acting like a freight train all game long. And even without Davante, who went out with his injury, he apparently was on the sideline the rest of the entire game. He never actually took off his uniform or anything. They officially listed him as questionable. They never actually ruled him out. Maybe part of that is because they don't want to get speculation on whether or not he'll be available next week or not. I will say thank you very much, Prize Picks, for rebooting him, so I don't have to worry about Devon Achane turning me into a loser on that front. But just he never came back into the game. Savon Ahmed got whatever carries that Raheem Mostert did not. And even if it was only 2 or 3 yards at a time, Mostert was doing exactly what he needed to do. He was getting forward yardage. He was getting forward progress. Why does Mike McDaniel just not want to run the football on 3rd and short? I don't understand why the play calling is always something odd, something bizarre, something that traditionally speaking, I get that he's trying to be an innovator, but sometimes the tradition works. Sometimes you can't go away from what works. if you see that this team is it's not like the Dolphins were getting stuffed on every time they ran the football. They were getting good chunks, these small chunks, large chunks of rushing yardage the entire way. And this has been a problem all season long with Mike McDaniel. I don't know what goes through his mind when he's thinking about, okay, this is 3rd and short. I just need to get 1 yard, 2 yards in order to get the first down. Let me do something weird and like maybe try to force a screen pass to Tyreek Hill. I think that's something that actually, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me. Was it 3rd down or 4th down when Tyreek Hill caught that screen pass in Kansas City, where we were looking at it as like, why would you call that at that specific time? And then Tyreek ended up getting tackled. He fumbled, and the Chiefs that was the last touchdown the Chiefs scored all game long. Was that not the exact same play? And it feels like they tried to run that same thing again, and it blew up in their face this time too.
Yeah, I don't understand how it's just going back to that same well. And it's, I have some speculation on that I'm just going to quell, that I'm not going to put that out there into the ether. But like you said, I can't remember a run of Raheem Mostert getting stopped in the backfield or even having to break a tackle in the backfield today. The run blocking was really good, and the Raiders were over pursuing consistently, particularly along the edges, that just push ahead with Mostert. We don't always have to be the smartest guys in the room. Just get the first down. That was asinine to me.
I can see that Duke is watching. I think he's watching the Buffalo-New York game based on what's happening with his eyes. I can see him shifting towards what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I've got my TV is in that direction, so
Oof.
yeah. Buffalo just kicked the ball off. The return guy got crushed, fumbled, and Buffalo got the ball. So
okay, well, you know what? We had said that this was probably going to be like a get-right game for the Buffalo Bills, but even still, the Dolphins, right, as of right now, even if the Bills win this game, they're still ahead in the AFC East by a good chunk. So I'm not concerned about what's going on with the Buffalo Bills at this point. So now I want to go ahead and get into the offense a little bit more as a whole. I see Poltergeist here. He's talking about it's like McDaniel thinks that since everyone knows that you're supposed to run at 3rd and short, he's trying to find a play for a gotcha moment. Yeah, I mean, gotcha. Like when you catch the other team off guard, that's a big deal because now it means you can find he's got Hill all the way back there. And mind you, he did have a moment. It just wasn't a heaving 50-yard bomb. It was just Tyreek Hill turning a 30-yard pass into a 60-yard pass because he's just that fast. I can't remember. It was actually the Kelsey brothers who were doing their podcast, and they were talking about what it actually means to chase down Tyreek Hill. The speed that he shows on TV does not do justice to what it actually is on the field, per what they said. And that right there was a perfect moment of exactly what we were looking at. Tyreek Hill just raced past everybody, even though he had a safety there. He had corners all around him. He just went, I'm faster than you. I'm going to go score a touchdown. Thing of beauty. Don't get me wrong. The whole team, the Tua to Tyreek connection is as strong as it ever was. Thank you for not dropping any passes today, Tyreek. I really appreciate that. And Jalen Waddle, as soon as Tyreek went out briefly for a hand or whatever it was he was dealing with, Jalen Waddle instantly came alive. So we're going really good with that. There's a lot of good things to look at here. It's just the key moments, the parts that it feels like always, like the offense could be so much better if you just clean up this little spot here, this little itty bitty thing here. And that's all that is just discipline stuff. That's execution stuff. I don't want to be too harsh on the offense because this was not one of those games where it was just, you couldn't figure out why they couldn't get the ball moving. They were moving the football. They were moving the football easily, no problems whatsoever. It's just that when it came to those last moments, the Tua's fumble, you had who did the other fumble? I can't remember. It was a Julian Hill, the rookie tight end. So, and then of course, I don't know what happened. I think there was a miscommunication or something between Tua and Jalen Waddle down the field because that was why the interception happened. So all of that stuff is just things that need to be cleaned up. The offense still works. It does. It's just we have become accustomed now as Dolphins fans, because I see people saying in the chat that we need to cheer up because we just won. So why are we complaining? You have to understand, we have now gotten a raised standard in our minds of what exactly we expect from these Dolphins. Pretty much everybody in this pregame show expected the Dolphins to score at least 30 minimum, and they scored 20. which I get it. It was enough to win the football game. The Raiders are not a good offense. Aiden O'Connell did exactly what I expected him to do. He had a couple moments here and there, but he didn't. At the end of the day, he just couldn't keep up with what was happening. But the problem is that now we expect the Dolphins to score at least 30, especially on teams like the Raiders, who are not exactly at the top of their game. I will give Antonio Pierce credit for what he's done. Ever since Josh McDaniels went out and Antonio Pierce came in, the team looks alive. The team looks more focused. The team looks just better overall. So I'll give him credit for that. But we expect the team, when they start to get into a rhythm, they keep the rhythm going all the way to the end zone. So when it abruptly gets cut off, like full stop turnover or full stop error of that stops the drive short, that's when we look at it and it's like, what happened? Now we look at that. It's no longer that, oh, well, the Dolphins are just trying to find their way on offense. They have their way. So now we start to look at it from the perspective of, well, they lost their way for a second there. What happened? And we start questioning it.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, not just the 3 turnovers and not just going 0 for 1 on 4th down, but also 3 for 11 on 3rd down. And there's nothing you can really point to in terms of officiating. I thought it was a well officiated game, other than something I pointed out on Twitter, which was the very strange spot on a Tyreek Hill reception in the red zone that may have ended up costing the Dolphins points on that. But yeah, you have to be a lot better when it matters most, because still 422 yards of total offense, nearly 100 yards on the ground, over 300 through the air. That's a productive day. But what you're used to seeing from this Dolphins team is a bit more than that, which, again, I understand the cheer up mantra, and you got the win. As far as we know, other than Achane came out of the game relatively healthy.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with Achane. I'm going to be dead honest with you. I think he'll be back next week just fine. But that's my theory on that. Just the fact that he was out there with his jersey on and his pads and everything. They straight up said, we're not going to rule him out. That tells me he could have gone in, but I don't think they felt the need to send him in.
Well, you're going to have to be healthy with a really short week with playing that Jets front 7 that is very, very nasty, that they're going to have to establish the run next week. And you can't just rely on Wilson, who hasn't gotten much work this year, or Ahmed, who kind of is what he is at this point. So, Raheem Mostert took 22 carries today, which is a heavy workload for him, and much heavier than he's been used to over his career. But you're going to need Achane next week, and you're going to need to convert on 3rd downs, because that game could come down to inches on Friday.
All right. And I just want to really point this out real quick. We have a Raiders fan in our chat here talking about how soft finesse teams like Miami are mincemeat. And I'm just thinking to myself, do you think the Raiders won this game? Like, seriously, you realize you lost, right? The Dolphins still won. Like, we're here complaining because we as Dolphins fans have a higher standard for what we expect from our team now, and you still lost. You still lost the game. So I don't exactly know what you're here trash talking us. Like, if you had beat us, then fine, you can have your moment. But you lost the game. What are you even talking about? So, Duke, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the defensive side of things. Jalen Ramsey proved himself once again to be a top corner in the NFL. There was a lot of talk about whether or not he was washed up or not. Like, some people were talking about, I'm not going to go out there and say, oh, Sauce Gardner versus Jalen Ramsey, who's better? I'm not going to get into that right now. But Jalen Ramsey, ever since he got to Miami with Vic Fangio and this scheme, he's come in these past couple of weeks he's been playing, came alive. He's unbelievable. He's 2 interceptions today. The first one, like we mentioned before, probably the most impressive of the 2. That should be on SportsCenter's top 10 plays, if you ask me, because that's a play that is unbelievable. But this whole defense, ever since Ramsey came in, everybody seems to have come alive. Xavier Howard is doing well. He's making tackles. Javon Holland, Kader Kohu doing what they do. The only thing that I'm a little bit like meh about is Andrew Van Ginkel seems to be going back to doing his inside linebacker role. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like there are better ways to use him than that. I feel like he should use him as another pass rusher. But this whole defense from the get-go just feels a lot better now.
Yes, and to elaborate on that comment about being mincemeat, I think that's the one thing that will carry over into meaningful football, is the fact that the Dolphins defense is playing as well as it has. And you have to again realize that they held Patrick Mahomes to 14 points, 0 points in the second half of that game. They held the Raiders to 0 points in the second half of this game, and 6 of the points that they did get were short field on turnovers. So while the offense could use a little more power and physicalness, or whatever you want to say, physicality to the game, the defense is there. Like Michael said, what 36 yards rushing or whatever, just they had nothing on the ground. And what was crazy is it seemed like they would have a gain where they were like, oh, they would have like a 4, 5, 7 yard gain or something like that. But it was just couldn't get anything going. Most of the yardage that they got, that O'Connell got, was late in the second half. And I would say part of that was the defense was tired from being on the field, and it was just a situation where they had to pass a lot. So, the defense is there. Jalen Ramsey has turned around what the defense can do. They can do more now because that side of the field is taken care of, and you're not going to have moments like we had in week 4 against Buffalo, where you have Caterco, who, although he's a good player, against a dominant player like Stephon Diggs. You're not going to have elite on elite players, and we saw that today with Jalen Ramsey on Davante Adams. And Davante Adams got his, but he was held in check for most of the game. So he's turned everything around. And it's not just the playmaking, it's the whole scheme can now mold into what it was supposed to be. I know you picked your 0 as Bradley Chubb, and I don't think he got a sack today, but he was a monster. And I think fans need to realize that about him. He has come on as of late, and though he didn't get that sack, he was constantly creating pressure. They had a third down deep in the Dolphins territory that they threw the ball, and he affected the play so that it became an incompletion. So Bradley Chubb stepping up, Jalen Ramsey's return. This defense is there to let this team go deep into the playoffs. The question is going to be, can the offense just cut down on the mistakes? I mean, I know people talk about, well, we're not trying to be doom and gloom here, and we cheer up and we won, but it's the fact that we had 6 points total in the second half. We had a missed field goal, which was, kind of expected it was a 50-yarder, although he did hit the 51-yarder, so we'll give him
I know, I
credit
was
there.
shocked. He right down the middle. It's like, why can't what's happened there?
I mean, he misses that kick. He might get a call to Greer's office this week. But seriously, it's got to cut down on those mistakes. I thought Tua, despite his numbers, was off today. And what I mean by off was, I don't think he was as crisp as we're used to seeing. Like for example, early in the first half, even the pass to Tyreek that went for a touchdown, the ball's like it was high. I think he cleaned some of that up in the second half, but we're used to seeing that, keyhole accuracy, and it just wasn't there early in the game, I thought. So, and one more, I'll give a shout out to Austin Jackson. The sack that Max Crosby has was on a scramble drill where Tua takes off running up the middle, doesn't get back to the line of scrimmage, falls down. Max Crosby touches him down. That was the one sack. Now, he affected some plays, but for the most part, Austin Jackson did his part today. Very, very pleased with what he did. I'm interested to go back and watch some tape and watch the game just to watch him. And that's another thing. And I promise I'll shut up after this. We need Robert Hunt back. These outside runs don't work well with guys like Eichenberg and Cotton at the guard. They just don't have the athleticism to get to the second level. We need guys like Hunt. I don't know what you're going to do about the left guard position, but you get him back, you can run the ball that direction. You can do some more of that stuff, get up the field, and you see some of that. It's just these outside runs just weren't hitting. And Mostert was doing what he could to get yardage after contact there, but when they were running up the middle, good stuff. Those guys can bulldoze the way, but those outside runs, just to me, they just aren't there without the guards that we're used to seeing.
I feel like at this point, the running game, like you said, it's dependent on having good offensive linemen. But I feel like we did see some improvement in the run game overall, and I think that actually coincided with River Craycraft coming back. I'm going to be dead honest, because Craycraft, I don't think he had a catch today. Maybe I'm wrong. Does anybody have the box score up? I don't have it with me right this second.
I've got it here. He didn't have a target.
Okay, so he wasn't even a target all game long. But as a blocker, again, River Craycraft, there's no wide receiver on this team better than he is at what he does. And there were some moments there where Raheem Mostert was able to get to the second level, get some good chunks of yardage there. And because even if it's only one or two guys, River Craycraft being in there gives you more confidence in the ability that the Dolphins have to be able to run the football. When Robert Hunt finally does come back, and I do think he'll be coming back sooner rather than later, I really don't think that his injury was so bad that he's going to be just out for the rest of the season. I sincerely doubt that, because otherwise he would have been put on IR by now. So I feel like that maybe next week we'll get a better option for what we've got for Robert Hunt. But I will say that as much as we like to trash Eichenberg, he wasn't that bad today. I really don't think he was. Like, there was one play where I think it was Eichenberg that did end up getting beat pretty badly, but I can't remember what it was or what the situation was. But I do remember seeing Eichenberg. The guy, they just kind of like shoved him aside and said, "I'm going to go past you." So, but that was pretty much the only thing that I could really see just watching the game as much as I could, that Eichenberg was not doing at least a halfway decent job. I get that they're backups, so we're not going to expect a starter caliber kind of play from them. But this offensive line, man, Butch Berry, I don't know what his trick is. I don't know what magic potion he's given all these offensive linemen. But all of a sudden, like, Austin Jackson looks great. Kendall Lamb is a Pro Bowl level starter, even though he's a backup to Teron Armstead. These guys have done a phenomenal job with what we've been given. And Max Crosby, like you guys alluded to, aside from that one sack, he didn't really do a whole lot today.
Yeah, and that Tua was also getting the ball out incredibly quick today. Leads the NFL with just over 2 seconds from snap to balls out. And he was under 2. He was sub 2 today, making really quick decisions. And I mean, you didn't really notice anyone along the offensive line, which is the best thing you can say for an offensive lineman is, hey, didn't have to call your name today. And you're right. Austin Jackson did a good job with Max Crosby. As I mentioned in the pregame, I've watched a lot of Raiders the last couple of weeks, and Max Crosby, who's finally getting some of the credit he's due for how much of a problem he is week in and week out, doesn't come off the field, unbelievable motor, and is just whipping some of the best offensive linemen in the game, was pretty quiet today. The offensive line held their own, and like you alluded to, Lewis, thank you, Denver, for taking this allegedly horrible offensive line coach off your hands. We greatly appreciate it. We'll take that bullet for you.
Yeah, for real. So now the only other thing that I really want to allude to at this point is I'm kind of concerned about the special teams. Like, I think most of my tweets today were about special teams. I'll give Jake Bailey credit. He had 2 good punts near the end of that game, but that first one, man, like that reminded me of when Matt Hawk was the punter for the Dolphins, right? And like, Hawk would have a couple really good ones, then he would shank the next 2, and then he would have another good one, and then he would shank the next 3, and then he would have perfect for the next 4 punts, then he would shank the next 2 of them. Like, Jake Bailey, are you really telling me that Matt Turk's nephew would not be at least on par with whatever the heck Jake Bailey is doing? Was the difference really that extreme? Like, after this season, I'm looking at the Dolphins, I'm saying, go get Michael Turk and just at least let's take another look and see what he can do, please. I don't want to just pay Jake Bailey a ton of money to not be a good punter, because he can like, even bad punters have good punts. Again, Matt Hawk was perfect example of that. But Matt Hawk is not a good punter. He's not. And this guy Jake Bailey, he's not a good punter. There's probably a reason why, Pro Bowler or not, the Patriots decided you're not worth keeping around. So as for Jason Sanders, if they do not give him some competition next season, I will start questioning what's going on. Why is there like favoritism happening in the Dolphins GM office with Jason Sanders? Jason Sanders he's not reliable past 40. He's not. Like, as soon as you get into the 50 range, it's a toss up. Is he going to make it? Is he going to miss? I'm going to lean towards miss every single time because that's what seems to happen. If it's by 45 or less, I still feel pretty confident he'll make it, but that's not always the case. Usually if the Dolphins are that close, they just go for it anyway. They don't even bother trying to kick a field goal most of the time. So I was actually surprised by how often the Dolphins decided, let's go ahead and kick the field goal. Not that I'm complaining, because points are points, but I was looking at this team and thinking, you're kicking a lot of field goals for what you guys normally do. And that has a lot to do with Tua being off. But just really quickly, can somebody read me Tua's stat line for this game?
28 of 39 for 325, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, was sacked once, and then ran it 2 times for 6 yards, fumbled once.
Okay. So that's Tua being off. And he still threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns and only 1 interception, which appeared to be a miscommunication of some sort. That's him being off. Isn't that what an elite quarterback would do if he was having an off game? Like, bad quarterbacks or even meh quarterbacks, when they have off games, I'll look at Kenny Pickett as a perfect example. What did Kenny Pickett do today? Like, I think by the half, I saw that he had thrown 13 total passes for like 13 total passes, and he has like 30 plus something yards. That's after a whole half of offense.
Tommy DeVito already has more passing touchdown games in the NFL than Kenny Pickett does.
That's not a good thing, man. By the way, kudos to the Giants. They won today. They beat the Commanders. And hey, listen,
schedule.
Thanks. Strength of schedule. You can only play who's ahead of you. But I will say this: if the Giants can beat the Commanders, again, let's just chalk another victory there for Miami right there. So
Titans are with the Titans coming up in a couple weeks. Things are not going well there. Derrick Henry, who kept defying father time for all these years with how much workload he's gotten, how big of a guy he is. It appears, and I may have to eat these words, but it appears Father Time may have finally won that battle.
Well, he's an older running back, and they usually have kind of a ceiling on that. But the Tennessee's offensive line is also bad.
Yeah.
They have Peter Skoronski, who was their first-round pick, and I couldn't tell. I think Daniel Brunskill's their center. He was a free agent. Other than that, I couldn't tell you who's playing on their offensive line. They have that guy that played for Philadelphia, the first-round pick that they signed this offseason. He's been bad. It's hard for them to get any traction because they're like, well, yeah, Will Levis had that 4-touchdown game to start off with. It looks great. We're going to load the box and make him beat us, and he's not doing that. So it's I think if you put Derrick Henry on a team like the Dolphins or the Chiefs or the Eagles or a team with a good offensive line with playmakers outside where it's going to open up things for him, he would look kind of like his normal self. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he's got a lot of mileage because Mike Vrabel has worn him out.
I'm not terribly worried about Will Levis in a couple of weeks. My goodness, yeah, he had that great game against the Falcons, but
it was the Falcons.
Yeah, that's the key word there. I may eat these words, but I'm going to chalk up both Commanders and Titans as 2 more wins. Which, if that's the case, in a sweep of the Jets, that's the division in hand.
Well, the Dolphins just shut down like Aiden O'Connell's a rookie. They just shut down Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs for pretty much nothing. Like, okay, Davante Adams got beat the Dolphins defense once, but the people he beat were Javon Holland and Deshaun Elliott. I didn't see Howard or Ramsey anywhere near that play. So I'm not gonna count that. He just found the mismatch and beat it. As far as the I'm suddenly blanking out. The Titans. Yeah. Titans, DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry. I'm not worried that the Dolphins can't beat them. They've already shut down an elite wide receiver and running back as it is, especially with Will Levis as the guy who's going to be throwing the football. He's another rookie quarterback who's going to be dealing with a lot of stuff from Vic Fangio's coverage.
Well, this is the stretch where you get quarterbacks of you just dealt with Aiden O'Connell, and he looked okay today. He made some plays, but at the same time he made some bad plays, and he looked like a rookie at times. You get Zach Wilson over the course of the next 4 games. You get Sam Howell, who's been sacked at an astronomical rate. He's probably going to break that record this year. And then you get Will Levis. So you've got 5 bad or inexperienced quarterbacks over the course of the next 4 weeks and 5 weeks counting today. You can that's where you got to make hay. You've got to win those type of games. Now I'm concerned about Miami's offense traveling to New York to play their defense. I would feel slightly better if Robert Hunt's in that lineup, but and I said that a couple of weeks ago. I think that's the next big test for them. If they can come out of that game with a win, you get a long week before you face the Commanders on the road, and then you get an extra day because you have Titans on Monday Night Football, and then you have the home game against the Jets. So this is the first start. It's 20% of the way there.
Do the Dolphins go undefeated at home this year? 5-0 at home currently. The 3 remaining games: Titans, Jets, and Bills.
And Dallas.
Oh, I'm sorry, and Dallas. That's right.
It depends. I think they can beat Dallas at home. I think they will beat the Jets and the Titans at home. It depends what happens week 18 with the divisional standings, where they're at in the overall standings. If Buffalo's out of it, if Miami's out of the running for the 1 seed and kind of positioning is all locked up, we may see a lot of Mike White that game, and then I don't know. If Miami needs that game, and Tua and the offense and all the starters on the defense get to play that game, but I think they beat Buffalo. I think Buffalo's right now is just too beat up on defense, and the Hard Rock Sun's going to weigh on them. And OSHA's going to get calls. There was a Raiders fan tweeted that today about that. Did you see that?
It wasn't that hot today, though.
Yeah, just like, come on, man, that's just ridiculous. But undefeated at home. I think they win the next 3 games at home. That Buffalo game's depending on if they're resting people.
I think that Dallas is going to be a challenge for them. I really do. I think that Dallas might be a tough one.
I think Dallas and Miami are similar teams.
That's not a good thing, though. There's 2 whole Stephen A. Smith songs dedicated to the Cowboys being accident waiting to happen. I don't want to be compared to the Cowboys.
Well, I just don't know if their team. I mean, if they're having to go on the road, and so I don't know that they run the ball that well. I don't think. So I like Miami's chances. That it might be a game more like what we saw today. Their defense is going to be tough. They're going to have to deal with Micah Parsons. But I think Miami can win that game. I think Miami will be favored in that game.
Need Terran Armstead badly in that game.
Yeah.
Well, Armstead played the whole game today. So, yay. I mean, what else can you say? So next up are the Jets, and this is right now a team that the Dolphins are going to be facing the Jets next. They currently Zach Wilson is trying and failing to lead the Jets down any kind of a drive right now. So I'm not really all that concerned. I should also mention that safety Tony Adams for the Jets, he had a compound fracture with his bone sticking out of his hand. It is now available on OnlyFins, $3 a month to see that nasty injury. But yeah, it's gnarly. But so that's not that I want to celebrate his injury or anything. That's just awful for anybody to deal with. But that's one less player that the Jets have to be able to.
And my ESPN app, I've got the game pulled up here. It said that Mekhi Becton was just injured. Don't know. I didn't see anything. So that's a loss for them. I don't know if he's playing left
Yep,
tackle or right tackle for them.
I'm watching him now. He's on his he's sitting up on the field. He's
Okay,
he's
so it may
dealing with
not
the
be that bad.
trainers.
He's a large human.
He is a
Oh,
very, very
oh,
large
oh!
human.
I just saw it. He got rolled up on. So that's a big loss for them. Because they need their offensive line's bad, and they're going to have to protect Zach Wilson. They're going to want to run the ball. So the run defense is going to have to step up again, do like what it does today. And I will be perfectly honest. I trust Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders passing game over the Jets passing game.
Because of Zach Wilson, though. Zach
They-
Wilson's not good.
They've not scored a touchdown in at least 2 games. I don't know when the last time they actually scored a touchdown. And they probably will against Miami because that's just how it goes. But it's they're just not good. And Aiden O'Connell's got some spark to him. And I'm gonna hit on the Raiders. If there's Raiders fans in the chat, I'll say this: I think you got the guy in Antonio Pierce. And I hate it when interim coaches don't get the look. Because I remember with Dan Campbell, and I'll be honest about Dan Campbell, I don't think he was the right guy for the job at that time. But he's blossomed into a great coach. That team's 8-2, I believe. And it'd been nice kind of if Miami had held on to him instead of Adam Gase. But sometimes these interim guys just get the look for the season, and then they don't get looked at for the actual coaching position. I think Antonio Pierce should be. And I don't know if I would say Aiden O'Connell needs to be the starting next year, but absolutely you don't go back to Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think they've got some talent there. It has shown up. As bad as they were and as bad as they looked under Josh McDaniel, they have looked like a relevant team. And I know we talked bad and talked about how Miami is going to whoop up on them during the pregame show and all that. But they're a feisty team. And they get Kansas City next, and I'll be honest, I don't think that's going to be an easy out for Kansas City either.
Oh, I would love if the Raiders could somehow take down Kansas City. That would be phenomenal. I would be so happy.
I think that they have some limitations, and as a rookie quarterback, you're going to take your lumps. But they've got something, and so now, looking back at it now. During the game, like Michael said, it's an emotional thing. You're like, oh, I can't believe we're not winning this by 70 points. But that's an improving team, and I hope Antonio Pierce gets the look for them, because if he does not, someone else will take him.
I will say this regarding Jimmy Garoppolo: the Raiders, if they wanted to cut ties with him somehow miraculously, they would only gain about $13 million in cap savings and $15.5 million in dead cap if they decided to cut him after June 1st. If they try to trade him, then it's not really that much better. Well, actually, if they trade him after June 1st, they actually save $24 million and they only get about $4.2 million in cap savings. So maybe they'll get lucky. Maybe some team will take Jimmy Garoppolo because they're like, hey, I'll take a chance on that. Because Jimmy Garoppolo, man. I have never seen a dude fail upwards so much. Like, how does he keep getting paid? Is he ever that special? Was he ever that special?
They let McDaniels pick his quarterback, give him a ton of money despite the injuries and production that we've seen from him, or I guess lack thereof. And now they're stuck with him. McDaniels is out the door, but they're still stuck with Jimmy G. And if Mark Davis is anything like his dad, he's going to be eyeing this quarterback-heavy draft, and he'll get something. But I still can't believe that the Raiders went away from the interim last time with Rich. I'm blanking on the pronunciation of his last name. A lot of vowels.
Who are we talking about?
I know who you're talking about, but I can't say his name either.
After Gruden and before McDaniels. But he did a tremendous job. I believe took them to the first round of the playoffs, and then they just said, sorry, we're going to go with the guy who ran out on the Colts after 24 hours. So we'll see. But, yeah, I think they do have a chance to beat Kansas City, and that'd be huge as the Dolphins look for the 1 seed in the AFC, while that's still very, very much in play, because the Jaguars are susceptible to the occasional game. And Mark Andrews being out for Baltimore is big in that regard, because he really makes that offense go, and it's a big trickle down effect in how he affects that offense. So it could end up being Miami versus Kansas City for that one. So I'm rooting for everybody against Kansas City. Maybe there's some tumultuous times in Taylor and Travis's relationship. I don't know. Just whatever I can take to get losses for the Chiefs.
I mean, I'll say this: if there were ever a time that things would go wrong, it would be when somebody is dating Taylor Swift. There's a reason that nothing has really come of any of those dating relationships. I don't like celebrity dating. I really don't. Like, if I feel like that every time a celebrity gets any kind of dating relationship, it becomes more about the cameras than it is about the actual connection that the two have. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, can I? You guys are older than I am. Has there ever been one? Name me one celebrity relationship that has worked out.
Rita Wilson, Tom Hanks.
Okay, I don't know I know Tom Hanks. I didn't know who Rita Wilson was. So, because again, that's a little beyond me. Sorry.
Pierce Brosnan and his wife. I can't remember what her name is, but they've been together a long time.
But it's a nobody. Well, I don't want to say nobody. I just don't know her name. But still, it's like
I don't keep up with celebrities, so I mean, I can tell you like some undrafted rookie from the 2016 class, but I can't tell you like a celebrity spouse or something like that.
I think Nnamdi Asomugha and Kerry Washington, I think they're still together. But I think that's been like 10, 15 years. I don't know. I think if something goes awry and then Arrowhead is just filled with 40,000 angry Swifties outnumbering the other.
Could you imagine just a whole bunch of Taylor Swift fans coming in to root against the Chiefs every week? That would be awesome.
We need some operatives on it.
That would be
somebody needs.
I mean,
yeah.
Okay. I should. I don't want Travis Kelce to have an unhappy personal life. That's cruel and unusual to root that for him. But like, I don't know, man. I don't like getting into that sort of stuff because it just feels like it's.
Mekhi Becton was just getting on the cart.
Oh, well, he's done. Okay.
If Jets fans think Mekhi Becton is bad, wait till they see the guy that he's supposedly beat out for the job. So enjoy that, Jets.
And you're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, and it just showed the 49ers. He would still be on the 49ers if the Brock Purdy thing had not happened. They got fortunate that he worked out like he did because the Trey Lance experiment did not work. And he would, they would either be playing with Trey Lance right now, and I don't know how well they'd be doing, or Jimmy Garoppolo would still be there. So that's, there you go. Tim McGraw on Faith Hill.
Sorry, my father is he would know. He would know.
So that's a Jimmy Garoppolo, man. I mean, would you take him as the Dolphins backup if that job?
Not anymore. No, not anymore. No, not as a backup. Not anymore because
ready.
I need somebody who's actually going to be healthy and stay through the whole game, and I don't trust Garoppolo as far as I can throw him that he will make it through a whole game as the backup. Like, we will be back to Skylar Thompson before we know it, and I don't want that.
But hey, this is the first game he's played against the Dolphins or was on a team against the Dolphins and didn't get hurt. So
because he didn't play.
That's right.
It's like the only way it could have happened is he had tripped over somebody on the sideline.
And we don't have confirmation that didn't happen.
And we don't have this is true. We don't have confirmation that didn't happen. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I feel like we've talked out this post-game show. So Jets are next. We're right now seeing them do absolutely nothing, and I do mean nothing, against the Buffalo Bills. So quite frankly, I am not one bit concerned. I know, Duke, I know you're concerned. I'm sure we'll talk about it more on Pulse of Fins Nation this upcoming Tuesday, but I am not even the least bit concerned about whatever the Jets have in store for Miami, whether they're in MetLife or not. By the way, MetLife takeover, do not underestimate how that has an effect on these teams. Okay. Those Dolphins fans, like the ones I know Igor and them at Dolphins NYC, they are relentless. They will be heard. They will be heard on camera.
That is one experience that I would like to do at least some point. I mean, obviously I want to catch a game in Hard Rock, but I would like to go to the MetLife takeover at some point.
Just be ready, because those tickets go like that. They actually had to charter another bus, one more than they actually already had planned for. So I would not be surprised if there's like just a whole section of MetLife this year that's just decked out in aqua and orange. So that will be fun to watch. That's going to be it for this show, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate the time that you've spent with us. Make sure that you're going to prizepicks.com. Use that promo code 5. That's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Hopefully I won, and hopefully that means that you guys won too. I would love to be able to send you some promo funds right there, just so you guys can jump in, do your own thing too. It's on me. So let's go ahead and close this up. We will see you all. I will be having Fins Nation ready for you guys tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. I'll be recording later this evening, and we will have Pulse with Fins Nation on Tuesday. Extra Yard going to be sometime this next week. There's going to be a whole bunch of Dolphins content ready for you, so make sure you're stuck around for that. We will see you all next time for another episode of The Final Yard, the pregame yard prep, all the things.